What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Adventure Outpost. Another weekend has come and gone, and it is once again time to talk those juicy box office numbers. That's right, we are talking the weekend, Halloween weekend, October 28th to the 30th. What goods do they have in store for us this weekend? We have a plethora of good stuff to get to. Was any of the new movies able to take a bite out of Black Adam? We're going to find out here today. But quickly, before we dive into all of those good box office numbers, if you can, as always, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, drop some comments down below. Let's hear what you saw this weekend. And now we'll get into those juicy box office numbers. It was a bit of a dip here at the weekend for the box office this past weekend. We were not able to maintain the highs of last weekend, which makes sense because we had the big, huge debut of Black Adam. So naturally, it was going to have a little bit of a dip. I didn't realize how much of a dip we would have. We ended up dropping 42.7% over last weekend, dropping back down to a total gross for our top 10 of $63 million. So a bit of a drop. Last week, I believe we were like well above 100 million. It was our first time getting back over 100 million in a nice long little chunk of time. And here we are back down below it again. I expect it's going to be like that next weekend as well. We're probably going to dip even more because there's absolutely nothing coming out that weekend. But then the weekend after that, we have the return of Black Panther hitting our screens. And I'm sure we're going to get some nice, juicy box office returns for the next few weeks after that. So we're getting there. Little low, but nothing too bad. We're going to take a look here at the top 10, and it should surprise absolutely no one that Black Adam was able to maintain its victory, just cruising along right now. Let's go rock and look at the charts and see how we're doing. In first place for the second week in a row, Black Adam, it drops a 58.7%. That is a pretty big drop off, but it's pretty standard for these big, huge blockbuster tentpoles to have a drop off of that much. It takes in $27.7 million for a total domestic haul of $111 million off of a $195 million budget. A lot of good stuff there to get to in the Black Adam. He's going to show up in a couple of charts we're going to look at later, so we're going to save a lot of those juicy returns to talk about later. I know looking off of that $111 million after 2 weeks off of a $195 million budget, normally for a movie would be something to be a little bit of a cause for concern, but when it comes to a movie like this, it is nothing to worry about. This movie is well on its way to printing money, especially if you look at what it's been doing globally and worldwide and how quickly it's ranking up its money. I'm sure by the time Black Panther runs around, this is a movie that's going to have well made back its budget and then some. This is a huge win for DC, huge win for The Rock, huge win for everybody there. They got a lot of good stuff to look forward to in the future. But another big victory win here. I was curious to see how this movie was going to do more so than Black Adam. I expected Black Adam to retain number one. What I did not expect, or at least I was hopeful about, didn't know if it was going to be able to do it, but it was able to do it. Here in second place, holding strong, still in its second weekend, holding on to number two, is the George Clooney, Julia Roberts rom-com Ticket to Paradise, dropping 39.4%, taking in still $10 million to bring its total domestic haul to $33 million off of a $60 million budget. That is big for them to be able to hold on to second place, especially going into Halloween weekend with all the horror movies going out right now and Black Adam still to go see. I thought this movie might have taken a little bit of a dip into the top 10, but it was able to hold on to number two. It's holding on strong, which is really awesome. This is another one where normally we would talk about with $33 million domestic haul after 2 weeks off of a $60 million budget. Might be a little bit of a cause for concern, but this movie is very healthy at the box office. Internationally, it is absolutely just hauling in money. So this is another movie, much like Black Adam, that is printing money hand over fist at this point. It's just bringing in some good returns. So two huge wins off of the movies that came out last week, and to hold on to those top two places, big, huge, stellar news for them. Not so stellar news, though, is for that big, huge new wide release this movie, which was our last horror movie to be coming out for the season, and that was Pray for the Devil. Pray for the Devil opens in third place with $7 million off of a $7 million budget. Not the worst. That's not a terrible thing to do. I think the thing that's going to hurt this movie in the long run is the fact that this was its only weekend to make money. Halloween is tomorrow, and then after that, nobody's going to give a fuck about horror movies anymore. Those things are going to take a nosedive out of the top 10. And so this movie really had to make its money this weekend. And the fact that it just made about the amount of the budget is a little bit of a cause for concern. I mean, it's nice that it was able to make the amount that the budget cost. So if anything, they might end up breaking even here, so it wouldn't be a total loss. But this is definitely not the win that you want, especially when we've seen so many big hits coming for the Halloween season. So much stuff this year at horror has just done so well. It was a little disheartening to see this movie only come in right there toeing the line. A few things that you could say to her. The critics' score definitely doesn't help this movie. This movie got absolutely butchered in the ratings. It is not a great movie. I went and saw it back on Thursday and caught it, and it is sluggish. It's boring. Above all else, it has the biggest mortal sin in that it's not really scary. And this is coming from somebody who scares easily. I don't watch a lot of horror movies. I'm slowly dipping my toes back into the world of horror. So I scare pretty easy. I should be the tailor-made people that you want me to be making horror movies for. And this movie bored the shit out of me. It wasn't scary. You could time the jump scares down to the minute. It just had a very cookie cutter, been there, done that plot. This movie is very much a movie that whoever did go and see it got put there off of a really good trailer. This was a movie that had a really good trailer with no follow-up. And it's a shame. So it's gonna end up being in there as one of those big disappointments of the Halloween season for what you expected from it. Maybe that's why they dumped it here right at the tail end. Like, hopefully maybe it did itself for the weekend and then they moved on. But whatever it is, pray for the devil, isn't coming through the way they hoped for. A movie that is coming through how they hoped for, a movie that's just printing money hand over fist now, is in fourth place. It is Smile in its fifth week, dropping 40.4%, taking in $5 million to bring its total domestic haul to $92 million off of a $17 million budget. Huge wins right there. We've talked about Smile ad nauseum. That is a huge win for those guys. They are just printing money. Does it have enough to get that last $8 million to get us over $100 million and hit blockbuster status? I don't know. It's going to be tough. Like we said, tomorrow's Halloween. After Halloween, horror movies just dumping off the face of the earth. We look forward to the holidays now, and we're going to leave these movies in the dust. Hopefully it has that last little bit, though. I would love to see this movie join the blockbuster club. It would be such a huge win and a nice badge of honor for those guys. And rounding us out here in the top 5 is another disappointing horror movie. Halloween ends in its third week, dropping another 52.1%, taking in $3.8 million to bring its total domestic haul to $60 million off of a $50 million budget. This movie is just barely going to squeak by and make a few dollars. What a just disappointing end to the Halloween franchise. We've talked about this ad nauseum last week, so we're not going to dive too much into it today. Just such a sad finale for them to make, regardless of what you thought of the movie. Dropping in sixth place, we've got Lyle Crocodile in its fourth week, dropping 33.6%, taking in $2.8 million to bring its total domestic haul to $32.5 off of a $50 million budget. My God, this movie is just struggling at the box office. It is such a shame because it is just such a fun kids movie. It's a great family movie. This movie should have been making money hand over fist. It should have been a sure thing, but it just goes to show you, man, the box office does not care about your sure bets. Opening here in number 7, we've got Till in its third week, going positive 673%. Dear Lord, what an amazing uptick on that. Obviously, as you could say for that one, that is a movie that is now just opened wide this weekend. It had a very limited release 2 weeks ago that was playing mostly just in New York and LA. And now this weekend it opened wide in 600. I think it opened wide in like over 1,000 theaters. I'm not entirely sure of the run count, but it opened enough that it was opening in a wide amount of theaters. So it was able to be positive 673%. It takes in $2.8 million to bring its total domestic haul to $3.6. I don't know what the budget was for this movie. Sometimes with some of these more indie films, it is tough to find what their actual budget is for it. Anywhere that I try to look and get this information, it is tough to find. Hopefully, as the weeks go by, maybe they will release that information. But for now, we do not know how much it cost to make Till. I can't imagine that it was a staggering amount of money. If I had to guess, I'd say at the most maybe $20 to $30 million for this movie. So I don't know if it'll make its budget back. Honestly, I could be. I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe this was even like a $5 to $10 million made movie. It all depends. I don't know. The production value looked incredible for the movie, so it might have cost it in the more 20 to 30 range. But I wouldn't be surprised to see if they were able to finagle it to do 5 to 10. But anywhere you slice it and dice it, this movie opening up much bigger theaters now. It is definitely getting a much more positive review now and is starting to bring in some totals. So we'll keep watching as the weeks go by and see as it brings in its totals. I actually got to see this movie this weekend too. I was super excited to see this movie, just to check out for the subject matter, and I really enjoyed the historical dramas like that where you get to see more into the life back then. Movies like this are just they're important to see, especially in this day and age. It's a tough movie to watch. It was very sad movie to watch. I was just squirming in my seat for most of the runtime. Just phenomenally acted, just phenomenally made. Everything about the movie was just really, really good. And it's just one of those movies that just makes you sad. It just makes you mad, infuriated. It just gives you all those insane feelings, and it's just so crazy to watch those things because, when you're born to a certain time period and you're growing up and you don't really know, and you're first starting to learn about the history of things that happened before you, you grow up in a time like now where you think that racism and all that stuff isn't nearly as bad as it was back then. We've come such a long way, but you really haven't come that long of a way. This story of Emmett Till is one generation removed from me. That story happened 4 years before my dad was born. That's not a long time ago if you really think about it. It's so insane to realize this was not a long time ago. It was only the 1960s that the civil rights era happened and all that stuff went on. That's such an insane thing to think about. My dad was a child while all that was going on. My mom was a child. It's such an insane thing. You grow up in this day and age, it's young kids now under 30 and mid 30s there, and you think that oh, that was such a long time ago, but it wasn't. So it's such an important thing still to see movies like this and have movies like these made, because it's such an eye-opening thing, I feel for so many people. It's an important movie that people need to see. It's tough. You don't really, it's weird to say something where you're just I enjoyed that movie so much, where you're just should you really say you enjoyed a movie like that? And obviously, you can. It was a great movie. It's a phenomenally well done movie. It's an important movie. You should absolutely go check this movie out if you have a chance to go see it. In number 8th place is Art the Clown Just Won't Fucking Give Up. This animal just keeps on chugging along. In his 4th week, he is positive again. This man is just continue to fire on all cylinders. Plus 2.7%. He takes in $1.8 million to bring his total domestic haul to $7.6 million off of a $250,000 budget. You son of a bitch, Art the Clown. You're just making money hand over fist, you son of a bitch. You're just chugging along. This movie, I still haven't seen it, not gonna see it, but good for you, Art the Clown. You keep doing your thing, keep making your money. That is a huge win for you guys. All the kudos to you. Still hanging around in the top 10. This is not a movie that I would have guessed 7 weeks after its release would still be in the top 10, but here we are. The Woman King in its 7th week, dropping 40.9%, taking in $1.1 million to bring its total domestic haul to $64 million off of a $50 million budget. I don't know what it took in worldwide, so obviously it remains to be seen here how much money it actually is made, if it's printed money right now, but still, that is a huge win for them to, after 7 weeks, to still be in the top 10. Not a lot of movies did that this summer. That is huge for them. Kudos to you guys. Outside of the big blockbusters, you don't see many movies doing that. So kudos to you guys. Keep chugging along. We'll see how much longer you got left in the top 10. Maybe another week or two. I'm sure by the time Black Panther comes, you might have taken your bow, but you did a hell of a run, and you guys should be proud. And rounding us off in the top 10 is another movie that has expanded to a much wider release, and that is Tar, with positive 104%. It opens up in way more theaters in its limited release. It takes in $1 million to bring its total domestic haul to $2.4 million. This is another movie with these small indie movies. We just don't know what the budgets are. It is tough to figure out what they are. This is another movie that I can't imagine cost a lot of money to make, so they might be well on their way to making and turning a nice little profit for them. So to all you indie movies that managed to sneak into the top 10 this week, good for you. Kudos to you guys. Welcome to the top 10. As always, for the year 2022, we take a look at our top 10 worldwide. Let's go to the charts. Top Gun Maverick surprises nobody by still hanging out in first position here. It takes in $1.484 billion. Jurassic World right behind it with $1 billion. Doctor Strange in third with $955 million. Minions Rise of Gru with $934. The Batman with $770 million. Thor Love and Thunder still $10 million behind it at $760. I think that's where it's going to peter out and hang around in. Watergate Bridge right behind that at $626 million. Moon Man at $458. Fantastic Beasts at 405, and holding on to probably its last weekend or so is Sonic the Hedgehog at 401. It will be interesting to see if come next week Black Adam will have taken that position, or in the weeks to come after that, if Black Panther is going to do it. It's the race against time to see who's going to do it first, Black Adam or Black Panther. And then as we also take a look here at our top 10 domestic, we're going to take a look right here at these charts. Now, once again, Top Gun hanging strong in first place with 716 million, Doctor Strange with 411, Jurassic World with 376, The Batman with 369, Minions Rise of Gru right behind it with 368, Thor Love and Thunder with 343, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at 190, Elvis at 151, Uncharted at 148, and Nope bringing in the rear with 123. This is probably Nope's last weekend hanging out there. Next weekend, I am sure we will see Black Adam take that positioning, knocking Nope right out of the top 10. Now, as always, we like to take a moment and give a nice fallen salute to our fallen heroes. These are our heroes that did their time in the top 10, but now they have sunk down out of the top 10, and we won't see them again until they hit their streaming and physical media releases. We take a look here at the chart. We've got 3 movies that are bowing out of the top 10. After only 1 week on the chart, Triangle of Sadness already bows out of the top 10. Amsterdam, after its 3 weeks on the chart, bows out of the top 10, ensuring that it will become one of the biggest box office bombs of the year. And after spending 5 weeks on the chart, the Don't Worry Darling film that everybody loved to learn about, The Backlash, finally takes its bow out of the top 10. My fallen heroes, we salute you for the time you did in the top 10. You made your money. Well, some of you made your money, but you made your money. You staked your claim. You did your business. Now you ride off into the sunset. We'll see you on streaming and physical media. We salute you. Now, in its second weekend of release, Black Adam has continued to make a healthy amount of money, so much so that it has managed to knock itself onto 2 of our charts that we like to track along here. We're going to take a look at our first one right here, and that is our 2022 blockbuster status. All of the movies for the year of 2022 that have managed to make over $100 million domestically here at the box office. So we take a look at our chart and give our quick little rundown. We saw the top 10 domestic already, Top Gun through Nope, but right there cruising in behind it, you got Lightyear at 118, The Lost City at 105, Back from August, you had our Bullet Train, and it just a couple of weeks ago managed to break over it with 101. And now adding itself onto the list is Black Adam with $111 million. This is a huge win for the 2022 blockbuster status chart. It is joining up. We correctly guessed that it was going to be on here. We wondered how long, if it was just, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and it took only 2 weekends for it to join its blockbuster status. That might be a thing that I might add to the chart in the weeks to come, is maybe see if I could figure out in the times, and I'll write them on there, how many weeks it took for it to hit that status in the blockbuster charts. But Black Adam joins it here right now. Congratulations to you, Black Adam. Welcome to the 2022 blockbuster status list. And then the other chart that we'll take a look at that Black Adam is joining the list of movies that have managed to hold on to the #1 spot at the box office for 2 weekends in a row, consecutive weekends. We're talking back to back. We're wondering if it's going to go for the hat trick next week, if it'll join only 2 other movies that managed to do that this year. But let's take a look at our lovely little chart here. We look at all of our movies that managed to hold #1 for more than 1 week consecutively in 2022. Spider-Man started us off for the weekend of January 21st and 28th. Uncharted followed right behind it for the weekend of February 18th and the 25th. The Batman was our first Triple Crown winner with March 4th, March 11th, and March 18th. The Bad Guys took April with April 22nd and 29th. Doctor Strange managed to be our #2 three-peater, and it took for May, the weekend of May 6th, 13th, and 20th. Top Gun joined right behind it, taking the weekends of May 27th and June 3rd. Jurassic World held dominion over June right there with the weekends of June 10th and June 17th. Thor Love and Thunder took a bite out of July with July 8th and July 15th. Bullet Train managed to keep the August going hot with August 5th and August 12th. Smile really spooked up the ending of September with September 30th and October 7th. And now Black Adam lightning bolts its way into this chart, taking the weekend of October 21st and October 28th. There is nothing coming out next weekend. So I firmly expect for us to be adding Black Adam to the Three Peters Club, joining the triple hat winners for this year. And of course, they are all superhero movies. Those movies, they just, for whatever you want to say about them, I know I am always somebody who loves to shit on our superhero movies because I'm just so tired of seeing them, but they do some goddamn business. And as long as they continue to do business, they're going to continue to make them. And if 2022 has shown us anything, it is that we are still very much in the era of superhero movies, as we're going to have three Triple Crown winners, all from the superhero genre. We have one last chart to look at before we wrap it up and go home here today, and that is the October rankings. It is the end of October. October ends tomorrow. The 31st is our last day, so naturally we got to rank up all the movies for the month of October that we watched. Now we're going to go to the chart here, and you're going to see what I was most anticipated for and where I thought everything would land for me personally, and then obviously what my actual rankings were, and see if anything lined up properly. Now, as always, I don't always get to see every movie that I'm most anticipated for. Some of the times, a lot of the stuff that I see are limited release movies that don't always get released in areas where I can go check them out. So naturally, I didn't get to see every single movie that I was most anticipated for. But then we have a few of them on there that weren't on my most anticipated list simply because they just pop up on streaming out of nowhere that you didn't even know they existed, and then you watch them and they get added to our rankings once. So let's take a look at this bad boy chart right over here. If we take a look on the left-hand side first, this was my most anticipated. We'll start at the bottom from my least anticipated up. My least anticipated for the month of October was Halloween Ends, followed by superhero movie Black Adam, followed by The School for Good and Evil, followed by a movie that actually didn't even end up releasing in October. It looks like it got delayed to God knows when, but that was White Bird, A Wonder Story. Then we have the movie Tar, followed by the movie Till, followed by Armageddon Time, the family movie Lyle Lyle Crocodile, the rom-com Ticket to Paradise, the horror movie Pray for the Devil, Christian Bale's Amsterdam, and topping it out for my most anticipated, it was the movie All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, if we take a look over on the right side, we have the movies that I actually ended up getting to see and where everything ended up ranking for me. And if you take a look, I managed to get two correct. Two of them were correct, baby. All Quiet on the Western Front and Ticket to Paradise all landed in the spot where I thought they would, but that was it. There was some good shakeups. Let's take a look and we'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. I think the first one that you can notice is I didn't end up hating Halloween Ends as much as I thought I would end up hating it. Halloween Ends was my least anticipated movie for the month of October, and it ended up standing itself right there in the middle. It ended up, to me, being a much better movie than I ever would have imagined. It easily was the most interesting Halloween movie to me since Halloween 3. If you want to see more of my thoughts on that, you could go back and look at the Halloween weekend video and check a look and see my thoughts on that one. The second big takeaway that you can take from that is that I also didn't hate Black Adam as much as I thought I would. Black Adam ended up being somewhere closer to the top there. Definitely ended up rounding out our top 5 in there. And say what you will about superhero movies, I know I always shit on them, and I will continue to shit on them simply because I'm tired of seeing them. They've just been oversaturated to the point that I'm just exhausted on them, and there's just and please take it at face value that even though Black Adam ends up being up there, I still was not the biggest fan of it. It was entertaining, but it is still one of the most cookie cutter superhero movies I've ever seen. It's one of those ones that absolutely feels like it was just fed into a generator and just popped out the script based on a bunch of buzzwords that they wanted to. Now, also having said that, the movie is still a lot of fun. There are a lot of good bits in it. I think The Rock did really well as the character. I think Pierce Brosnan was a lot of fun in it. I really enjoyed the interplay between, I don't remember exactly what his name is. I think the Hawk guy. And the dude who was basically just Ant-Man. Their interactions with each other were really funny. I thought they had a lot of like neat moments to it. The villain was stupid. Some of the CGI was stupid, and it just like the superhero lore is just really silly. But other than that, I still was able to turn my brain off and have a fun time with this movie. It was easily better than Doctor Strange or Thor. That's for damn certain. DC, the big winner of the year for superhero movies, because the Batman easily takes the crown, and then I would put Black Adam right behind it, followed by Doctor Strange, and then Thor: Love and Thunder. So Marvel really bringing in the rear, so they really need Black Panther to really deliver on the critic front, at least. Obviously, their movies make ridiculous amounts of money, regardless of whether they're good or not, but they need a movie that's actually freaking good for once. And by all means, from the early reviews, it seems like they actually do have that hit on their hands with Wakanda Forever. That will be remained to be seen for me, because I'm such a hard critic of these superhero movies. So we'll see. But let's round it out and actually look. My least favorite movie that I saw for the month of October was the horror movie that was the adaptation of a Stephen King short story, Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Stop making short stories into movies. It does not work well. It just doesn't. Like, there's very few of them that end up working well. Most of them are just padding out their runtime, and they're just brutally long with so much just like unnecessary shit. Stop doing it. Right behind that was a family little Halloween movie that came out on Netflix called The Curse of Bridge Hollow with Marlon Wayans. It was pretty silly, pretty stupid, not very great. Another movie that's not very great, this is probably one of the bigger ones. This movie was my third most anticipated, and it was brutal, and that was Pray for the Devil. We talked more about that earlier, but that movie really ended up just like screwing the pooch for me. It was just not a good movie. And then following along, hot on its heels, is another movie. It was my second most anticipated movie for the month, and that was Amsterdam. And that movie, much like Pray for the Devil, has the ultimate sin of just being boring and a slog to get through, and it ends up dropping down here all the way down, managing to then fall behind Halloween Ends. Right after that was The School for Good and Evil, a neat little fantasy movie that was dropped on Netflix. Ended up being a lot better than I thought it was going to end up being, so that movie ends up rounding out, just missing out on the top 5. And then catching us here in 5th place, you got your Black Adam. Correctly called that number 4 for me was going to be Ticket to Paradise. Number 3 for me, though, a nice fun win, Lyle Crocodile. I knew this movie was going to be fun. I just didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. It ended up to be a very crowd-pleasing, heartwarming, just fun family movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It was great to watch. In 2nd place was the movie Till. We talked more about that movie earlier. That movie, just a harrowing movie to watch, just so freaking good. The performances were phenomenal in it, so it takes number 2. But number 1, we managed to guess correctly. Our number 1 most anticipated. It wasn't hard for me to guess it because I love war movies. War movies are just like one of my favorite genres, and this movie was something special. It was one of those movies that from the minute it started, from its first scene, I just knew that this movie was going to be everything that I hoped it would be and more. The story was phenomenal. The cinematography was phenomenal. The fucking music, that was what I was not expecting. I was not expecting the music to slap as hard as it did. It was so freaking good and just really set the stage for that movie and really put you in that frame of mind that you needed to for that movie. It was just absolutely masterful movie. I gave it a perfect 5-star rating. Easily one of my favorite movies for the year. At the end of the year, we'll go through and we'll do a whole thing of all my rankings for all my movies that I saw for this year. And this one's definitely going to be way up there in the top, definitely at least in the top 5. Just an absolutely phenomenal movie, and it is one that you should absolutely go see on Netflix if you have not seen it yet. And that'll do it for us here for this week on the charts. A nice, fun little weekend. We didn't manage to maintain the highs, but we made some money nonetheless. A lot of good movies managed to hold on to their claims here in the top 10. We're cruising along towards all the good stuff coming for the holiday season. Halloween and spooky season is over. It is time to rush towards Thanksgiving weekend and Christmas week, where we get into all those really good movies and we start really raking in some hard dollars. And it is going to be a fun holiday season, definitely. So stick here on the charts as we go through all that good stuff and see just how well all these movies end up doing as we ride out the last 2 months of 2022. But that'll do it for us all here in this video. You have been you. I have been me. These are the movies we love so much. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you saw this weekend. If you were excited about anything, if you enjoyed anything, what horror movies you caught, if you caught Black Adam again, all that good stuff. I want to hear it down below. And until next time, adventure on.